Art of Adventure. This is episode 141 with Tom Edwards. The Art of Adventure is the podcast that helps you travel the world, run your business, and embark on an epic quest. I'm your host, lead explorer and guide, Derek Loudermilk. You can head over to derekloudermilk.com to check out the show notes and sign up for the Art of Adventure email newsletter, where you'll get the latest podcast episodes, articles, and monthly reading recommendations. Lately, I've been helping a lot of people leave the 9-to-5 and start their own business so that they can have the freedom to travel, spend time with who they want, make passive income anywhere in the world. And I do this by personal coaching. And if this is something you're interested in, feel free to just drop me a line. My email is derek@derekloudermilk.com. Hopefully I can help you too. So today on the episode is Tom Edwards. He's a global hitchhiker and professional musician turned author and e-commerce founder. And he's on the show to basically talk about how he went from sleeping under bridges with exotic animals to making up to $20,000 a month or more with his e-commerce business. He's got a new book out called $2 to Timbuktu. And in this episode, we go through all kinds of things like residual passive income from travel blogging using Pinterest. He talks about how he finds products to sell on his e-commerce site. And he also shares ways that he made money from all around the world, including hosting concerts from rooftops of various hostels around the world. So really interesting, wide-ranging episode from Tom Edwards. I think you're going to really enjoy it. He is a very interesting, entertaining guest. So here he is, Tom Edwards. Back to the Art of Adventure podcast. I'm here with my new friend, Tom Edwards. Welcome to the show, Tom.
Thanks for having me.
And Tom was introduced to, we met each other through Danny Flood, who is back on this podcast, episode 107, I believe it was. And so Tom has been traveling the world for a few years. He runs the blog Tune Up and Travel. He's got a new book called $2 to Timbuktu, a previous book called Planes, Trains, and Broken Strings. And we're going to hear a bit about some travel stories and then how Tom makes his living these days, I hope.
Definitely, yeah. Glad to talk about any of it.
As we were chatting in the first time we talked, you were originally sort of hitchhiking around the world on a very limited budget.
Yeah, that's kind of how it all got started. I guess my life now all got started was losing a real job, quote unquote, that I had, and then kind of taking a leap of faith and going to travel without a lot of money, and ended up running out of money really quick. So we were hitchhiking, train hopping, all kinds of stuff to get by, pretty much.
So that seems like a theme that I've noticed in doing my research about you, that you sort of take these leaps and you have, maybe not quite enough money to fully fund your year around the world or whatever it is. And it sort of forces you to figure out as you go.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. And it's one of those things where I like that about myself and don't like it at the same time. I like it when it works, and then when it doesn't work, and I'm just like, oh, what have I got myself into this situation? And then I'm like, I should just be working a 9-to-5. But it's always, I never actually want to go do that. But yeah, my theory is that if you, and this is the same reason I tell people if they want to start an e-com business or something like that, that they'll have better luck if they are not working a 9-to-5 when they do it. Because my theory is that if you put yourself in a situation where something has to work or you're screwed, then you put in way more effort into making it work. If you have a job on the side, then it's not that big of a deal. If this doesn't work out, then I still, whatever. But if it doesn't work out and your car will get repoed, then you're I'm going to put a lot more effort into making it work.
Yeah, there's a couple conflicting stories. There's the story of burning the boats. I think that was Cortez when he came to Mexico. And
Hernan Cortez.
Yeah, and he came to conquer Mexico, and his men were like, we're not really actually interested. Mm-hmm. So he burned the boats, and if they were going to get back, they would have to go get the supplies from the native. They would essentially have to conquer the natives to build the boats to get home. So he sort of forced their hand. But then the other story, the competing analogy, is Tarzan swinging through the jungle on a vine, where think of a vine as like a source of income, and he grabs onto the next vine and then lets go of the previous vine as he's sort of keeps swinging. So he like holds on to the last source of income until the very moment when he gets the next one up and running.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And that is, as of late, I have really been focusing on diversifying income streams for that very reason, because when I do have a good success with something, say the ecom, I'll have a really good few months and everything, but I don't use that to invest in something different, totally different, or, diversify. And then if Facebook changes their algorithm or something happens, then it's like, oh shit, everything's on the line again. So it's good to take those risks. But now, as the more I go, I would like to take those risks while having some cushions to back me up in case something goes wrong. So there's no sense in needlessly taking risks, I should say. Like, if you have an opportunity to get some stability, absolutely do it.
Yeah. So will you take us through your current business model?
Well, right now I do a mix between 3 different e-com business models. I do drop shipping, which is finding a manufacturer that makes a specific product and is willing to send one at a time directly to my customers from them, so I never have to pay for inventory up front. I do print on demand, which is essentially the same thing, except it's t-shirts, mugs, dog bowls, all kinds of stuff where I can print a design or logo or whatever on, and then if an order comes in, they'll print it, they'll package it, they'll ship it, and they'll charge me for that one product. And if I find something that's a really good seller, because those first 2, the profit margins aren't as high,
right,
paying more per unit. So if I find something where I know I'm going to sell hundreds of them a week, then I'll go directly to the manufacturer, or I have a couple manufacturers that I've been working with and ask them, hey, can you make this product? And usually the thing I like about this business model, other than not having to have inventory up front, which is huge, the other thing I like is if during the process of drop shipping, if I find something wrong with one of the products I'm selling, like for instance, I was selling these rings and they broke a lot because they were made out of zinc alloy. So whenever I went to have them manufactured, I had them use stainless steel because it's they won't break, because I had all these returns with people breaking them. And I'm paying like 20 cents more per ring to have a way higher quality product. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing I like about that. You get a chance to test without having to have a bunch of inventory. If I were to buy 2,000 of something and then there's like a major problem with it, then it's like, crap, I'm stuck with 2,000 of these things. Whereas if I'm drop shipping and then I get feedback from customers, I'm like, okay, well, when we manufacture these, we'll have to do this differently or do it the same if it's a winner, which rarely happens. Usually I'm changing something.
Yeah, I like that, the low risk testing of and iterating of a product.
Yeah, that's my big thing, low risk with the no inventory. Because, man, there's been so many times where I think a product is going to sell and then it does crap, and then another one I'll be like, it might, and it'll kill it. So it's really good to not have to dump a bunch of money into that testing.
And this is, a lot of people have a business idea and they would buy it themselves. They're like, everyone's like me and I love this product, so I'm going to get rich by selling this. But we're not for sure that the market actually wants what we have. And so we have to actually test it out to see if they want it.
And I tell people that a lot because I do a little bit of consulting and stuff. And generally people immediately want to focus on something that they're passionate about and they're really interested in. which if that happens to be something where you can find a really awesome product and there's a huge audience waiting to buy it, that's fantastic. But I always tell people that should be so low on your priority list, it shouldn't even really matter. The main priority is just finding something that people will buy that's not really that popular yet, and then putting it in front of a ton of people. And that's really it. Super simple, really.
And what other things have you tried throughout your travels to make money that didn't work out?
Well, the first one was travel blogging. When I was first going to go travel internationally, I traveled a lot around the U.S., but like I said, lost job, and me and a couple buddies were going. And I was like, well, I could start this website that would chronicle our travels, and we would be able to get like sponsors because who's doing this? I'm from a little town, and nobody does this kind of stuff. I was like, man, this is going to be huge. There's nobody else doing anything like this. I'm going to make all kinds of money on this. It'll get blown up. CNN will run with this. And I have a buddy here that has done travel blogging. He added me to a few of the Facebook groups. I was like, oh my God, so many people do this. This is not unique at all. But I tried it anyway. And I never did really. I made money from donations from people back home, but that was about it. And so a long time, I played music full time. I was a professional musician for 3 years as my sole income. Well, two and a half years probably as my sole income. But traveling, it was a lot harder for that because when I'm here, I have a network of bars that I played at. So it's steady work. And when you're playing abroad, nobody knows who you are. So if you walk into a bar, you're like, hey, I play music. Everybody looks at you like, yeah, you probably suck.
So you were a full-time musician before? No, so you said you lost a corporate gig and then set up on travel. You were a full-time musician before that?
No, what happened was I played music for years and years at the bars and everything. But when I lost my job, I had already planned to leave and travel. But I had like 3 or 4 months before we left. So I was like, well, I can try to get another job. But I was like, I think maybe I could book enough shows to make a decent amount of money. So I kind of started just calling all the bars that I played at, maybe once a month or once every couple months I'd play, and started calling them and trying to book as many as possible. And it ended up working pretty well. And I was able to save up a little money and pay my bills and everything. And then when I came back from that trip in 2013, I really took off with it and was playing like 3 to 5 shows a week and making like a pretty decent living with it. But again, if I go to travel, then that income stops. So I think it's Warren Buffett that said the goal is to make money while you sleep.
Yeah.
So I wasn't even making money while I was away from home. I would do a little bit, which I talk about in this new book, $2 to $10 because I have a lot of stuff for musicians traveling. So I would make money busking on the street, which did pretty well in like more expensive regions like Europe and stuff. And then I discovered this website called Concert Window, and that I was able to play live shows from my computer anywhere in the world, and people could tune in. You can charge whatever you want per ticket, like $1 a ticket, whatever, and then people can tip you. They're chatting with you, and they can like request songs, and I'll play it, and they'll tip me. So I would just get a hotel or hostel, with like a rooftop area, and then just set it up so the camera's looking, so you can see I'm on a rooftop and see the city behind me. So my theory was that people that are scrolling through all the live shows that are happening at the time will be like, what the hell is this dude doing?
Yeah.
It worked
That's
pretty
cool.
well.
I remember when I was living in Malaga in southern Spain, I met this house full of people and they were squatting in a big old mansion or something. Not sure how they did it, but they essentially had been there long enough that they had the rights to the house. So they weren't paying any rent. And they decided to learn various instruments. They had never been musicians before. So they would go down to the shopping district and play for a few hours a day. And they would make, I don't know, 100 euros a day. But, but they were in effect just learning to play. They weren't even that good yet. But people would, walk by and throw a couple euros in. And they had no housing costs, so that they were making
So they're
money,
doing pretty good then.
doing really well, learning something, having fun. Like each night they would go out to the beach where I lived, and drink at
Mhm.
sunset. And I was like, God,
That's the
it's really
life.
working out well for these guys.
Dude, that's funny that you mentioned that about them. Like they're learning to play and they're still making the money, because that's kind of what I discovered when I was busking a lot and stuff. Like me and the guy I played with, Corey, he played a cajon hand drum, and like we would be practicing because we just practice. We're out there for 5 or 6 hours, and we would a lot of times get more tips when we're practicing and screwing something up. And people would just start tipping, and I think it was because like when we screwed up, we'd be like laughing about it or whatever. And I think that more than the music, people respond to how you present yourself, not so much in how you dress, but like they're more apt to tip you if you're really happy and if you have like a good vibe emanating from you, and like in America, if you see a lot of panhandlers or whatever, they go the route of like, woe is me, I'm
Mm,
down on my luck, whatever, blah, blah,
yeah.
blah. But I found, at least in Europe, if you did that, you didn't really get shit. Like you had to seem, it was really weird, almost like you had to seem like you didn't really need the money. And you're like
Yeah.
out there making art or something,
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
people seem more
One of
that
my
one of the
favorite
touristy areas.
street performers was a couple of guys that had made a drum set out of buckets and random objects in the subway in New York, and they were
Oh
playing this
yeah,
awesome percussion concert, and they were like cheering and yelling and talking back and forth, and I was like, this is fun. Here's some money.
yeah, exactly, yeah. And that's why like any touristy areas where, especially with kids are like the freaking money magnet. This sounds bad, but every time you see a kid, you're like, oh, here we go, money in the bank. You start smiling at the kid or whatever, and they love that the hand drum that Corey had. They were like infatuated with it, and like they'd be looking at it, and he'd hand him a shaker and let him play the shaker while we're playing. And it's like if you're the parents, you're like, shit, I have to tip him now. And they'll give the kid some money, and he gets to come put it in the tip
Oh
jar.
yes. Oh,
It's a
that's
big
good.
thing. Yeah.
You
But yeah, that's
clever
why
musicians.
the touristy areas, man. And that we also found during the like half hour, 45 minutes of sunset, I did the math one time and it was like 60 or 70% of our tips for the whole day came in that like 45-minute period. And I think it's because it's like one of those things, people are in a happy mood and they're going out, with their girlfriend or their boyfriend, and they're walking. Well, we were on a pier, they're walking the pier, and it's a nice evening, got ice cream. And it's just like when you're, especially the tourists, if you're on vacation, you're in the mood to spend money,
Yes.
unless you're me.
I love that. Uh,
Well, maybe now, but not back then.
yeah, so I saw photos of you driving fancy cars recently. What's up with that?
That was a bucket list item. Drive a nice sports car up the Highway 1 in California. So we rented a Maserati in LA for a while, and then we rented this Mercedes C63 or C36. I'm not a car guy, so I know that the car guys I was with said it
Yeah.
was awesome, but it had like 500 horsepower. So I was like, and it was only rear wheel drive. So I was like, well, we're going to die on Highway 1. Somebody's going to goose it and fly into the Pacific.
Do you keep a bucket list as well?
I do, kind of roughly. I don't have like a written list or anything, but like I know the stuff that I want to do. Like some of it is like vain money things. Like I really want to own a Porsche someday, just because I think it'd be fun as shit to drive around in.
Yeah.
And but most of it's like travel stuff. I want to see Antarctica and like stuff like that, and like lifestyle stuff.
You've had quite a bit of travel experience. What are some of the places that stick out for you?
South America was really it was so culturally diverse. That one has always stuck with me. Like I made a lot of friends down there, and like that was also the first time that I ever traveled solo internationally. So it was quite the experience. And yeah, it's one of those things where you just like traveling solo. I wasn't sure how I was going to go because I usually like having somebody with me, and it was kind of an eye opener for me. I mean, it's true that it's hard to travel alone, really, if you stay in hostels and stuff, because you just meet. You have to make friends. You're going to meet people. They're going to be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to start hanging out with them. And like, so that was an eye opener for me. I quit at that point, relying on trying to get friends. And like I said, I'm from a pretty small town, and a lot of the people here do like the typical American vacations, like going to the beach for a week or whatever, which is nothing wrong with that, if you've got a 9 to 5 and kids and all that stuff. But there were too many times where I would have a friend that was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds awesome. Let's go." Blah blah blah. And then I'm sure you know how it is. Like the closer you get, people start dropping off, and then everyone bails. So after that trip, I was just kind of like, you know what? I'm just going to go. I'm going to go places, and it's been kind of cool that I have a couple friends who have been like. I have one friend who calls me his Sputnik, because the last year or so, like I'll go somewhere and he'll be like, I think I'll catch a ticket out, and he'll come like the last week I'm there, the last couple weeks I'm there, and hang out. So it's been pretty neat in that aspect. Like I said, you always make friends wherever you go anyway. So
yeah, and wasn't South America where you started in on the e-commerce thing?
yeah, that was and that was I was down. I had $50 left to my name, and I was doing the concert window things that I was talking about, but it wasn't quite enough because I still had like some bills back home to pay too, my car and stuff like that. It wasn't quite enough, and I was down to $50 left to my name, and I had a bill racked up at the hostel for like $100 and something that I had to pay before I left, which they didn't know that, And I was like, well, don't even have enough money to get a ticket home. I don't have enough money to pay off the hostel, so like. I'm in Peru. It's not like you can get a job there. They're not making any money.
Yeah.
I had seen this guy on Robert Nava posting a thing on Facebook about making money with buying products from China and then putting them on a Shopify store and then like running targeted Facebook ads to him. He called it the Product Blast or the Facebook Solution. I think he had 2 different names. I can't remember which was which. But I had just seen it. It was so weird how all this started from just randomly seeing a post on Facebook about this dude, and he just had like a living room full of this Halloween costume that he was selling like hundreds and hundreds of, and like that he's making this money. And it's like it's one of those things where you see, and like, I mean, we get so desensitized to stuff like that because we see on Facebook all the night, like this guy found this secret that banks hate, blah blah blah. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that, like where it's all just like bullshit. But he wasn't really selling anything. So I like joined his little Facebook group. But I, at that time, was just publishing the first book, Planes, Trains, and Broken Strings. And between that and the blog, I was thinking was finally going to start doing something because I had started getting a couple like paid reviews. And so I just saw those as the more viable ways of making money while I was gone, preparing to leave. And, I let it sit there, and at one point he was like, I'm going to release a detailed training on how to do what I'm doing. $30 just to, make sure you're interested or whatever. And I went ahead and bought it. I was like, yeah, I don't know. It still kind of seems legit. Like the people commenting on stuff seem like it's working. But yeah, it wasn't until I was down to that a couple months later, I was down to $50 and it was like make or break. And I was like, well, I can either sit here and watch the $50 slowly dwindle,
Yeah.
and crash and burn slowly, or I can just say fuck it and gamble this and just see what happens. The domain name was like $12, and Shopify you get free for the first like 14 days or 30 days. So the only thing that I really put money into was the domain name and the Facebook ads. I started, I think, $20 a day. I had found this little lightweight backpacking stove, like for wilderness backpacking. For like $7 on AliExpress and eBay, and I put it for $25 and set up a Facebook ad targeted backpacking, and I was like, okay, here we go. And my buddy in the hostel with me, he worked at the hostel bar there. I was like, all right, well, let's go get a drink. So I think I had like $6 or $8 left after all that. I was like, well, I'm gonna go buy a beer. And he bought me a couple beers, and then we went out, walked around for a while, came back a few hours later, and I had the Shopify app on my phone, and I saw a notification. I was like, oh shit. He's like, what? I was like, I sold one of those damn things. He's like, no way. I was like, yeah. And like the funny thing about it, the reason that I was like super skeptical is because that's the only thing I had on the store was that one backpacking stove. I was like, who the hell is going to buy something from a store with one product on it? But people did. It was weird. And like an hour later, I'm like, shit, there's another sale. And they just
Wow.
started coming in. And then it was like, oh, well, how do I get this stove to people? So then that was a whole other adventure. But yeah, it's been an up and down kind of crazy ride since I started doing it for sure.
Do you still sell that stove along with your rings and what other things you're selling?
The stove, it was weird. It hit a plateau. Like a month after I started doing it, it started making a bunch of money, and I had never thought that I would ever make that kind of money. I always had these aspirations, but the difference between like dreams and like when something actually happens, and you're like, holy shit. And like, I of course was super irresponsible, went out and bought a new vehicle and just like blew all of it. And then the sales just kind of stopped coming in. And I ended up just racking up a bunch of debt and just crashing and burning hard on that first one. And I ended up having to because I fell behind on the orders for people. So I had to shut off all the ads because they just quit working. And it was Facebook had done an algorithm change, but at that time I didn't even know what that was. So I didn't know what the hell was happening. I thought there was something wrong with my store. So yeah, I fell way behind on orders, and I actually ended up having to go to the bank and take out a loan for like $3,000 to ship all the orders. I mean, I could have just been a total douche and just never, but that just didn't sit right.
Yeah.
So I did that and pretty much had to leave them shut off because I went to LA to do some stuff with the first book. There was talks that a movie might be in the works and everything at that time, and I was going there to try to like finalize some stuff. And that was like a Hail Mary. But then I got there and like, yeah, this is super slow, dude. I don't know if you're expecting like. So yeah, and then I was like 3 or 4 months of being just absolutely broke. So I went from like super low to just sky high to just rock bottom again.
Wow, interesting.
And then started up and found the rings and everything, and was a little bit more cautious the next time around.
Yeah. So I'm curious, because you've had these highs and lows, what your current relationship with money is like.
Well, right now, sales-wise, I'm definitely in a low. It's been dipped for like a few months now. And it's still something that I struggle with, managing my money, I think. I'm still like, it's one of those things where if I don't have a lot of money, I'm really good at managing it.
Yes.
If I have a lot of money, I'm terrible. And then when I get to these points where, I don't have all the extra money to throw around, I'm like, you stupid idiot. Why didn't you invest some of that? And you blew it on all this dumb electronic shit that you can't sell now. You know what I mean? And stuff like that, and like frivolous things. And so I like to think that I'm getting better at it, that the next time I'm making a bunch of money off of a product or something, that I'll invest a lot of it. And I really think I will. I'll put it this way. I've done better this time than I did last time. Mm-hmm. So I think that I'm improving a little bit at a time, at least. I'm learning. Yeah. I guess maybe it has something to do with getting older. I don't think so, but because I still feel really irresponsible sometimes. Well, I have a problem where if business isn't going good, I'll get stressed out, and then I totally retail therapy. One of those people, it makes me feel better when I buy things. So it's just a catch-22, super ironic. I'm like, oh man, I'm not making much money. I'll go buy a bunch of dumb shit. I feel better now.
America.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So if you were to start a travel blog these days, well, actually, there's a project that I'm working on right now with my girlfriend, and it's called Uncharted Family. So podcast listeners, this is the first time that I'm mentioning this.
Ooh, nice.
It's essentially about living a nomadic family lifestyle, and we're going to have a kid, how to raise kids in multiple different countries, etc. And there's a lot of ways that it could go. We could, I saw that you've done some product reviews. There's also people that do travel fashion, or that, stay in hotels and do hotel reviews. There's always the podcast sort of advertising model. Where would you take, if you were going to advise someone about a new travel entity, blog, podcast, whatever, where would you take it?
First of all, I just want to say congrats on launching the new blog, because I think that'll be a really big hit. That's a big concern of a lot of people I talk to. Well, I have kids, so I can't travel. And that's
Thanks.
totally not true because you definitely can. And I think it's going to be amazing for your kid to grow up that way. Anyways, second off, this is actually something that I cover extensively in the new book, in 2 books, 10 book two,
Perfect.
where I really like passive income. It's like one of my biggest things. The least amount of work as possible because I'm lazy. So I'll put a lot of work at the beginning, but with the intention of not doing shit later on, really. Even with the e-commerce stuff, when it's going well, I only work about 5 or 6 hours a week, and I let my employees do all the heavy lifting. So with the blogs, what I talk about in the book is it's one of the things, like I said earlier, it is something that you can't expect to make money from right away unless you're willing to invest in a lot of paid traffic. And even then, I think it's more of a long burning thing. But it is more passive in the long run if done correctly than e-commerce and a lot of the other things because e-commerce you're always dealing with customers and you're always dealing with employees and all this stuff, whereas if you have a blog and you do it right, then it can kind of sit there and make money. And one of the ways that I talk about doing that in the book is affiliate marketing, which I'm sure you're familiar with, ClickBank and all kinds of stuff like that, or even writing an ebook. Like perfect example for your new blog. What was the name of the new one again?
Uncharted Family.
So you could even call it Uncharted, make an ebook, Uncharted Family, how to travel with children, et cetera, and have that on your blog with like the key points, the best takeaways, and then maybe some little nuggets like extra ways to make income while supporting your family and traveling, stuff like that. It's just a spitball example. But I like stuff like that because you can make, if you get a good, get SEO and use Reddit and all these things, even Pinterest, where you get longer term passive traffic, as opposed to Facebook or Twitter where something's gone relatively quickly.
Yeah.
And then in these blog entries where you're gathering all this traffic, you're attracting all these people, if you have those affiliate links or you're selling an ebook and all this stuff, then it just sits there and makes money compared to having to always look for new traffic. And I have an example of that. A friend of mine, his wife has a problem with her feet. It's like a rare problem, really, but still rare is like, hundreds of thousands of people around the world. And it's kind of an untapped market. There's like these special shoes you can buy specifically for that problem, but hasn't really like blown up. It gets great reviews and everything, but nobody knows about it. So he wrote this blog entry talking about the foot problem, jammed it full of SEO content, and then just put a little affiliate link to that. And it took him like 2 hours, and he's making like $50 a month from that article. Mm-hmm. And so now he's like, well, how can I take a step further? And got a hold of me and was asking about product development because theoretically you could then get, it's if you're buying from your competitor, if they're buying it, enough, if you're making $50 a month, then that link is generating quite a bit of sales probably. So if you did the product a little bit better, had it manufactured to your spec, stuck it on Amazon, then you go from making 75 cents a sale to making, $10 a sale, $15 a sale from the same, traffic. You don't have to do anything. Just switch the link in the post, and then it's going to you instead of the other guy.
You're the supplier rather than the other guy. Interesting.
Yeah. So I like stuff like that.
Yeah. Is it mostly, would you recommend like Amazon affiliate marketing? It seems like a lot of other travel friends I have do that with like essential oils or whatnot.
I talk about this in the book too, in that same section, because I break down like 10 or 20 different affiliate marketing companies in which the benefits and downfalls of each one and everything. And Amazon has a big benefit in that you can find anything on there and you can very easily add it to your store. They don't care. You just go and click the link, add it. If you get a sale, cool. And they do something really cool where it's like if somebody clicks my link, say I'm selling one of those foot things. Somebody clicks my link. Let's say they don't even buy the foot thing yet. They just look at it and then they go do something else. And then come back 3 days later and they buy a $10,000 engagement ring. I get the commission for that engagement ring because they went to Amazon from my link originally.
Right.
So that's a pretty big benefit. It's really rare that something like that happens, but people will go buy TVs and stuff like that, and you get a little check. But overall, Amazon's percentages are super low. It's like, I think you top out at like 6%, and that's after selling a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So some of these others like ClickBank, where you can get like 60 and 70% commissions, are a pretty big deal.
Perfect. And you mentioned long-term traffic from Pinterest, and I was under the impression that you had to have sort of like a photography-based website to make that work, because Pinterest is a photo-based medium.
I thought that too, but I have the Tune Up and Travel store where I sell those rings at.
Yeah.
I integrated it with Shopify with my Pinterest account, and just made categories of my rings, because I have like these charity things that I do with them. So one's like the Wild Rings Rescue Jewelry, and it's all like more exotic animals, and I donate a percentage to this wildlife rescue. And the other one's dogs that I do with the Beagle Freedom Project. So I made collections for each of those and used buyable pins. So it's really easy. Once you integrate with Shopify, you just click on the picture and it adds a pin and gives a price, and they can buy it on Pinterest. Now, I haven't done shit with my Pinterest account, right? I did that, and then like I haven't touched it. And those pins get me like a couple sales a week just from sitting there. And I found just from researching whatever, that Pinterest is a lot more long-term traffic than any of the other ones. Now, that being said, I've done paid ads with them, and I've lost money every single time, lost a lot of money. And I've even paid people to like run my Pinterest in the hopes to drive more organic traffic if it is, heavily like operated, or whatever the word I'm looking for there is. Yeah. And I didn't get really any results from that either. So I haven't really cracked the egg yet. I haven't really figured out what makes it work or not work. But my theory is something's either going to be viral or it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, there's even as much as people, new social medias, and then people try to figure it out, but there's always an air of, I wonder what's going to work.
Yeah, always. Yeah.
Throwing some noodles against the wall, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, the popular saying in our field is, throwing turds at the wall and see what sticks. Because that's what it is. Like I said, there's so many times where I'm like, oh man, this is going to fly off the shelf. And then it's like, fail. And then other times something will catch me off guard. So it is a lot of testing.
And so right now you're in Ohio, yeah?
Yeah, I just got back from California last week.
So how do you structure your travel business? How do you balance all that time-wise?
Well, the next book I'm going to be writing is actually kind of about this. It's going to be called The Millionaire Vagabond, and it's going to be about building a business centered around being location independent, specifically an e-commerce business, really. So from the ground up, I've designed everything to be able to be ran from anywhere. So all my employees, I have some local employees during like seasonal, when things get really busy, but they work from home, they work wherever. And I manage them through Asana, which is like an employee management system. With my business model of drop shipping and all that, you can do that from anywhere. And when I do have inventory, I just have a fulfillment house. So I have a warehouse I send everything to. They package it, they ship it, all that stuff. Now, that being said, I do want in the next year or two to get my own fulfillment center, to give me better control over, especially testing. If I just get 20 of something to test it out, I like to just ship it myself. But right now, I've come to the conclusion, even on the first trip in that first book, I said, like, I think that really, really long-term travel might just not be for me, because I really start missing my family back home and stuff. And I start to miss the comforts of home, my own bed, my own shower, a fridge full of my own food, all that stuff. So the past couple of years, I'll leave for like 1 to 4 months at the most, and then come back and refuel for a month, 2 months, or 6 months, or whatever, and then take another trip.
And are you operating on the Hitchhikers mindset still when you're out on the road?
Again, that's another thing I said in that first book. I don't think I ever want to do this again. Not the hitchhiking. I did enjoy that. But what I didn't enjoy was like the sleeping under bridges and sleeping with homeless people and begging for food and stuff. And like, and don't get me wrong, it made a great story, and like a lot of good, awesome things happened because of it. I met a lot of really cool people because of it. But these days, I kind of try to mix both. So I'll stay in an Airbnb, and then I'll also stay in like a hostel a few nights, so I'll meet some cool people, stuff, because that's the best place to meet people. It's like I have a friend who's, me and him, the guy I was talking about earlier that meets up with me and travels, and he is such the polar opposite of me traveling wise. It's a wonder that we get along as well as we do when we travel, because like he's like super tourist, like he has the list and he has to see like everything. So all day is like go, 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 go. You know, we got to see this. We can't miss this, all this stuff. And I'm such the opposite. I could go. I was in Spain for a month before he got there, and I hadn't seen shit. All I did was like work and like hang out with people, you know, go out and like get food or whatever.
Yeah.
Because that's like my thing. I just love like living in a place. That's my favorite thing.
Yeah.
The food, meeting the locals and stuff. I really don't care about the touristy stuff. I could give a shit less. I'll go and look at like something and I'm like, oh cool, and I'll take a picture. I'm like, oh sweet. All right, well, let's get moving.
It's funny how, you know, you never, like when people come to visit St. Louis, for example, we take them to the Arch, but I would never go on my own.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, it is cool. I mean, and I'll give them that, like, there's been like in Spain with Sagrada Familia and stuff, and I was super happy I went there. It was amazing. So like, I am happy when I go to see some stuff like that, but it's cool seeing it, but I hate like making the whole trip about doing that stuff. But at the same time, I could see why people do that, you know, especially if you're forced to go for like only a week.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to really envelop yourself into the society there. So yeah, go experience everything you can, cram it all in. But that's kind of why I prefer at least a month somewhere, so I can just relax and work and hang out.
Yeah.
Eat my face off.
You mentioned just a few minutes ago, like sleeping under bridges, and I think you talked about that the first time we chatted as well. But yeah. I was just curious about where you were doing that and what was going on there.
I did it at a lot of different places. In Europe, all over, we kind of had to do that. We just couldn't afford hostels even. So we would go on Google Maps and try to find like a wooded area outside of a town or whatever where we could like make up a little pirate camp for a few days. And we would stay there and go take baths in the Mediterranean or wherever, and then take hot buses into town to busk for the day, play some music, try to get some money for food and stuff. And then every like 4 to 7 days, we would get a hostel for one night. That way we could shower and join society for a brief moment and then return to the wild or to the streets or whatever, just because we had to. It was like a necessity thing. But I really hated it at first, but it's kind of one of those things where you like become desensitized to it after a while. Mm. And it's so weird that now when I'm home, like I hate sleeping over at a friend's house even. Like I want to go to my bed. And I think like, dude, you've slept on the asphalt in like a bike path tunnel, you know, many nights and stuff like that. Like you should go to sleep anywhere. So it's weird.
Yeah, it's funny. I prided myself at one point on being able to sleep anywhere. When I was living in Australia, at the university, the dorm I was in, all these guys played this war game with their doors open, and they had giant sound systems, and they were like playing against each other. And my room happened to be in the crossfire, essentially. And it was just like a war zone all night. And I was like, eventually I, got used to it and slept through it. Yeah. I was like, well, if I can sleep through a war zone, I can sleep anywhere. But now I'm like, oh, I'm just going to put my earplugs in and get my eye mask.
Yeah, it is so weird. It's like your body just changes and adapts to whatever you're in. And like, because I know if I went back to that after, it would probably be like a rough week or two, but then, you would get used to it.
Yeah.
And it'd start, yeah. Well, that's, a perfect example because, anytime I leave to travel, it's the same thing. It's like as soon as I leave, it's like my brain's like, all right, well, now you got to be this way, whatever. And, well, last year going to LA, we spent a month or so getting there and just sleeping in the truck and going to a lot of national parks and stuff. And same thing then, like, all right, this is what I'm doing. And it's like, if my body has to do it, it's fine with it. But if I have the opportunity to go back to my bed, it's like, ugh, It's just being a little bitch about it.
We're just getting older, I guess.
Yeah, that probably has a lot to do with it. Yeah.
Let's see, is there anything that we haven't talked about or they haven't asked you about that you want people to know?
Go buy my books. Yeah, I think it's been a pretty good conversation. We got to talk a little bit about the new book and stuff, and a little bit about the old book.
Okay, I'll just, that's a good segue. Where should people find you online and your work?
For the books on Amazon is probably the easiest way to grab them both. The first one, Planes, Trains, and Broken Strings, was about in 2013, where me and a couple friends went and traveled and ran out of money, and we ended up going Europe, Southeast Asia, Australia, and New Zealand. And there's all kinds of crazy stuff in that, hitchhiking with a drug dealer and ping pong shows in Thailand and almost dying in the mountains in New Zealand, all kinds of crazy stuff. And that one is my baby. That's still like the one that I hope someday really takes off. And then the new one, $2 to Timbuktu, I like to summarize it is how to travel like we did in the first book, but also a lot of information on how you don't have to travel like that. Mm-hmm. So there's there's guides on hitchhiking and guides on train hopping and all this stuff, but there's also all this tons and tons of info on making money while you travel, either from getting awesome hands-on jobs or working online or making passive income. And there's a whole huge section on for musicians who want to travel, all kinds of stuff for musicians.
Awesome. Have you been to Timbuktu?
No, I haven't. No, it's just a catchy name.
Yeah, I can't really remember, but I think Timbuktu is controlled by Islamic extremists right now. Because I've always wanted to go there.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Thanks for bringing that up, man. Awesome. For every
Take back Timbuktu, that can be
every
your next book.
Copy of my book, I donate 10% to ISIS. That's a joke. Oh God, someone's going to take that
short
sound.
For ice cream servers of America or something like that.
Yeah. That's unfortunate. Yeah, I did not know that.
Yeah, well, let's see. I can't even remember off the top of my head which country Timbuktu is in. So that shows you what a good.
I think it's in Nepal, maybe, or like around that area, isn't it? Or
Timbuktu.
India?
I thought it was in West Africa, like
dude, you might
Nigeria or something.
Probably like totally right.
Mali.
That's really bad. That's super bad that I don't know that too. Right? Oh man, I wish you wouldn't ask me that.
Timbuktu is just a made-up place.
I'm gonna look where it's. I'm looking up where it's at now.
Look it up. Everyone else
probably should have done this really early on. Yeah, totally. West Africa, Mali. You were totally correct.
All right, 10 points for me.
So,
Tom, I got a couple final questions that I ask all my guests. The first one is, if you could change or add something to the world, what would you wish for the world to have?
I wish that people were more open-minded to money, in the sense that there's like so many problems today that are directly caused by greed and money, especially like within our government. I think that we have to find a way to focus on the good of humanity rather than the money. Like our lack of public health care is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Like we pay more than enough in taxes right now to get that. And we don't, because, all of the pharmaceutical corporations and everybody donates all this money to the politicians. And to them, that's more important than the welfare of the people.
Yeah, efficient use of our resources.
Yeah. Like there's more than enough resources for like people to be taken care of. And I feel like we don't. We're kind of really selfish. So I wish that people would be more mindful of that, I guess.
Yeah, it's a good one. Final question is, what's your definition of adventure?
Ooh, I think that you can have a lot of different kinds of adventure. To me, adventure means anything that's out of your comfort zone. So for me, it could mean something different to someone else. Like for someone who's never left their hometown and then they go to the Grand Canyon and they take a road trip there and they see all this awesome stuff. To me, that's an adventure. And for someone else, it might be something different. But I think anything where you're going out of your comfort zone and you're doing something new and something that really excites you, and something that you'll be able to tell like your future kids about, stuff like that. To me, that's an adventure.
So where is your comfort zone right now? What would make you uncomfortable?
Right now, I'm kind of in a weird place in my life where I'm just like kind of an existential crisis where I'm like, nothing matters. So I guess I could just go to some crazy country and like, who gives a shit? But at the same time, ironically, or I don't know, ironically is probably not the right word, but funny enough that the problem for me going to one of those countries, the comfort zone wouldn't be my fear of getting killed. My comfort zone would be like just the nastiness of it. If you know this, I'm like, and I've been to a lot of third world countries, but like my comfort zone is like, man, I really like having like a nice bed and nice bath and stuff now. Yeah, like to me that would be escaping my comfort zone anymore. I'm just like kind of over that stuff.
Interesting. So thanks so much for coming on the show, Tom. Really appreciate you sharing your tips around travel and running a business from the road. It's been a pleasure talking to you again.
It's been a pleasure on my end as well, man. I really appreciate you having me on. Really love everything you're doing with the new blog and with the podcast and everything. So I look forward to following it all in the future.
Thanks a lot. Well, we will talk soon.
Yep. Peace.
Peace. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed that episode with Tom Edwards. Very entertaining fellow. Lots of practical business tips in there for you digital nomads, from putting yourself on what they call a death ground where you have to fight your way out. You have to figure out a solution, to learning what products are going to work simply through testing and trying it out and figuring out how you're going to make money. And it's always, some part hustle. So whatever great idea you have, it's still going to be how you make that idea happen. And this episode is brought to you by Adventure Quest, which is something that I have created. This is the first Adventure Quest. We've spent the early part of this year testing it in Bali. It's a week-long outdoors experience in Bali where you get to learn all about yourself, reconnect with nature, learn things that you never knew about yourself. And basically it's a rite of passage in the vein of the Native American Vision Quest, where you're going to step from the person you were before into the person you will become through adventures in secret canyons, rainforests, volcanoes, waterfalls all around Bali that I have scouted for you. So if you'd like to join me, all you need to do is sign up, and you can send me an email, derek@derekloudermilk.com. You can check out derekloudermilk.com/adventurequest to find out more, and hopefully you will come join me because it's going to be awesome. I might even run a couple trips because it's small groups only, 5 people in each trip. That's all for today's show. Now it's your turn to go out there and be adventurous.